Hello and welcome to the Awaken Feminine podcast. I'm your host, Kaki Lee, a mindset coach and healer who's on a mission to share the love and wisdom of inspiring women from around the world who have gone through adversity and turned their pain into purpose. Today, I'm excited to be interviewing Olivia Bangert, a certified health coach specializing in helping people with diabetes have freedom in their new normal. And I know she has so much love and wisdom to share with us today. Do I have you there, Olivia?
Yes. Hi there, Kaki. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Welcome.
How are
Thank you.
you?
I'm great. Thank you. And I'm so glad to have you on the Awaken Feminine podcast. Before we get started, can you tell us a little bit more about you, what you do, and where you're joining me from?
Yes, I'm joining from the Bay Area in California, in Oakland, in my house, and I am really excited to be here. I'm working with people who have diabetes and typically a new diagnosis. And in this health space, there have been a lot of changes, especially this year with the unpredictable environment and more focus on health and wellness. And so I'm really helping people go through some changes in their diabetes health in particular.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed a year ago, which is how I became more interested in learning just what the trickle down effect is from a lot of our health choices in the food industry and autoimmune, and just learning, kind of unraveling what different chronic issues are out there. And it's a journey. So I'm really happy to share and talk more about this space, about health in general and how everything connects in our lives and the challenges we go through.
I love that. So, Olivia, let's dive in. You just said that you were diagnosed about a year ago. So, can you share with us a little bit about your journey into, how you've discovered you have type 1 diabetes and then your transition into wanting to help other people?
Yes, yeah, it came together for me through this personal journey I had. And so last year, I was diagnosed kind of out of the blue in the hospital and had been having some challenges and saw doctors, different specialists, but no one had detected, kind of funny looking back at it, because it's a very simple blood sugar test and and I had labs and anyways all these tests and never discovered it until I could just tell one day after work something was really wrong and went in, and that's how I discovered it. And that sort of started this journey of a big change and a wake-up call really for my health. And, something else that happened to me a few years prior, unrelated to this condition, was a big change with my marriage. So I kind of put the pieces together thinking my marriage ended about 5 years ago. It was a really difficult time. I had some difficulties just finding happiness with work and other areas, and didn't realize at all that that would have an effect on my health. And then fast forward a few years, getting this diagnosis, and we don't know how it's started, at what point, and that's kind of one mysterious thing with type 1 diabetes especially, and other diabetes or chronic autoimmune issues as well. Is it a lifestyle? Was it something that happened? And also just the way our body responds to our life events. So yeah, that's what happened. And it was a hard time for a while, but really that process of going through change and feeling appreciation for opportunities that come out of change has inspired me to take a step towards this kind of leadership in the community and building connections. And especially this year, everyone being remote, and it's almost a crisis. Who do you have for your support? And especially if you have a clinical issue and it's harder to go in and see physicians.
Yeah. I just want to ask you, for our audience who doesn't know much about type 1 diabetes, you said you felt a bit funny after work and you were having some health issues. What kind of symptoms were you getting at that point?
Great question. I had lost a bunch of weight is kind of one thing. It's so diabetes is and type 1 is when you don't produce insulin in the body. And I had no idea what insulin is before last year. I never really heard about it. It's a hormone in the body that regulates blood sugar that moves from our food, so carbs or anything you're eating has to go through the blood via insulin being released in the body. And so what happens is my insulin, the pancreas is what creates that, and it stops all of a sudden. So it's your body either slowly or it could happen quickly attacking itself. And so there's no more insulin. So I was losing weight, not being able to process that food into energy. You're really thirsty, so your body wants to drink a lot of water to try to flush out the sugar that's not being absorbed. You're more anxious or irritable. If your blood sugar is really high, it's kind of like ketchup in the body, which sounds really kind of weird, but it slows down like your thinking, and that's some of the complications, the risk of having high blood sugar over an extended period of time, is there can be other complications. But from a day-to-day standpoint, it seemed pretty routine. Okay, you're a little more irritable, you're losing some weight, you're thirsty, or a few of these other things. Yeah, so they're somewhat common, but thank you for asking that, because it's good to know you have to advocate for yourself and really push and see what is going on, and it's all about the test that you're getting.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a lot of us don't tend to listen to our bodies, so it was good that you kept even though you had a lot of tests, nothing was coming up, and it took a while before you discovered that it was type 1 diabetes. And so that's great. So going from like your diagnosis, and it's been, you can say it's a long time, you can say it's a short time. So in that year period, was there a spiritual awakening or aha moment that where you went, well, I've got this diagnosis and I want to really step into that leadership role to help others? What was that, that switch that made you go
That
into
kind
it?
of aha moment.
Yeah.
For me, it was, so I've always loved learning for myself and investing in myself through classes and coaching I've had for myself. I had relationship coaching, I've had business coaching, and I decided to learn about coaching and become a certified coach without realizing diabetes would be kind of the niche. But then I had this aha, just thinking, this is such a lifestyle that is around the clock. It requires management, and it's something where if you don't have it, and this, I felt similar in the past when I've had other challenges, like I mentioned, the marriage unraveling. It's the sense that you're different from your peers all of a sudden, and everyone feels this way with something that they go through, some major challenge or life change that feels isolating. If you don't have that strong base, I love what you were saying about kind of that spiritual, that recognition of how important that is to really center yourself. And for me, I realized that I didn't have a really strong base. And so some of these life events really shook me. And I was thinking, at first I wasn't thinking diabetes, but I was thinking major life changes was an area I wanted to focus on. And I started to realize that this is everyone's going through big changes, especially right now and this year in particular. And so it kind of just dawned on me that it's my lifestyle. It's a community that I'm trying to immerse myself in as a new diabetic as well. And as I met more people and got more involved with different groups and learned what challenges are, I realized, like, wow, this is a group of people who really need a solution to get through and overcome things like anxiety and managing their health. And then also how that intersects with things like relationships. Who is your support? Do you have a supportive partner, or do you have a supportive parent who could be there, or friends, or at work? Are you comfortable standing up for yourself? Do you need to make changes? Like for me, for example, I moved into a remote job last year. Kind of ironic because we're all remote now.
You were prepared.
Yeah, I was prepared. But yeah, things like that where I felt more comfortable being at home and managing what I was eating and when I could get out to exercise. And so things like that just come, like realizing it's so interconnected, all these areas, and they have to come from a place of truth at a certain point. You can only you can only kind of put up with the acceptance of others for so long, unless it's really genuine. But for me, I think it was just all coming together, knowing there are people who want to overcome this anxiety and challenge.
Yeah, I love that. And, during the conversation that we've had so far, you talked about how, everything is interconnected. You had your marriage breakdown and how that possibly could have led to, how your body has reacted and you developing type 1 diabetes. And everything is that mind body spirit connection, right? So having
Yeah,
everything connected and in flow, it really makes a difference to how you go about in your life, right? Because when you're
it makes
disconnected in certain parts, you just, yeah, it doesn't quite
it's
work well.
something throws you off. Yes, there's something you have to listen to. And I read this book kind of ironically before I learned about my diagnosis. Last year, I was visiting a girlfriend in New York, and she had a book called The Body Keeps Score by Besson Van Cleef. And it's a book about trauma and how things like childhood trauma, and not necessarily even just major trauma, but we all go through these small or big traumatic experiences throughout our journeys. And so the book is about how the body suppressing that over the years has triggered so many issues for people, from something like obesity to chronic conditions to more major chronic illness like cancer, definitely autoimmune, diabetes, nutrition choices that affect other areas too. So that book really inspired me to think that was a wake-up call, just how much research is behind this idea that our body is attuned to what's going on. And if you're stressed, if you have that flood of cortisol, the stress hormone, for example, if you're stuck in a fight or flight situation, your body doesn't know the difference, and you sort of sink into that primal brain of anxiety or fear. If you live in that for too long, your body really responds and can start to shut down the non-essential functions because it thinks it's in survival mode,
Yeah,
which is so interesting.
I love that. And at the moment, is with especially this year with so much happening, I think there's so many people in that constant fight or flight, mode. They're just living in that mode. So it's just so important to work on that, mind spirit as well, so that you can get yourself out of that continuous fight or flight response in your body.
Yes, absolutely. I was leading a mindset coaching workshop. I had two back-to-back workshops, and it was in a corporate setting, so a little bit different from diabetes, but it just so happened coincidentally to be right before this company discovered that they were having a major merger and acquisition, and that was going to cause a lot of change for this department that I just led this training for not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago. And we didn't know it at the time, but the training about mindset, it's another realization that no matter what your circumstances, it's about that building that mindset, building that spiritual centeredness, and things such as thinking about what you're grateful for and affirmations that you're exactly where you're meant to be, you're growing, you're learning. I used to feel a little, I was kind of so about gratitudes, to be honest, a few years ago. And that's when I was going through, that was the first shock of just, I'm grateful for nothing. And how can people list off what they're appreciating? And it sounds so silly now, but I think, just that base helps us be able to go out and feel that frustration when things come up, or feel that fear. We can go off and go through that storm, but then we come back to our center and knowing that our certainty really is in ourselves, and our mindset brings us back to that certainty from challenges.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. A lot going on. I also saw the Tony Robbins Netflix had a documentary recently. I saw that last weekend, and one question he asked the audience. So he does these boot camps. This was a 6-day boot camp. It's called A Date with Destiny. I've never done it, but it looked amazing. And it's people are making huge transformations in an instant. And he was, well, one thing he said that stood out to me is people aren't afraid of change, but they're afraid that it won't be lasting change. They don't trust that true transformation that's going to really overcome. So kind of like, why bother? Why try? I'm not going to sustain this. And so sort of that hopeless kind of mindset. And another thing related to gratitudes I love that he said was, think back, try to think of 3 times in your life where you felt the most grateful in the moment. So not now looking back, oh, I'm grateful that challenge happened, but in the moment, how can you, like, what can you picture where you were really grateful? And I realized I couldn't really, it was hard. I couldn't really think about times when in the moment I felt that way. And that just made me realize that it's a skill you have to build. You have to train your mind. And now I'm so grateful. It's been such a blessing to have opportunities. That's something I absolutely work with people to shift that mindset, that reframing of how is this big change an opportunity, and how can this be a time where you really invest in yourself? Like how could that bring you back to that place of certainty? And I think it's true, if you haven't had experience feeling really positive, certain, a place where you can open up to those other hormones like serotonin on the flip side of cortisol, this like bringing you into your frontal lobe and really changing your brain. If you don't have that practice, it's going to feel like the earth is shattering around you. So that is something. So gratitudes, I've really realized how foundational this mindset practice. It's a practice. It's every day. It's really something like your fitness. Even if you're strong, you have to keep going, and it's a journey.
Yeah, it's definitely a muscle that you need to build, and such great pieces of advice. Gratitude is such a big thing, and I think I really only really, like yourself, like really discovered it when I started going on my journey. Whereas before it's like I was grateful, but it wasn't that. It was like, oh yeah, I'm grateful for that, but it wasn't really felt. You really need to feel that gratitude as well. So yeah, love that. So Olivia, having gone through everything that you've gone through, what is your personal mission? What are you here on this earth to do?
Oh, I love that question. I think it's so important for everyone to have their why and their mission, and know that it's something that is constantly changing and building. And for me, I have really discovered that my true purpose is helping other people, holding space for their challenges, and then moving them over to overcome and really find their new freedom, find freedom when a situation feels out of their control, how to help them become more free and secure. And it's just been so exciting to see that community aspect, and really embrace connections. Connections are really important to me, really authentic, intimate. I love that, just really connecting to someone and hearing from them.
Yeah, such a beautiful mission. So, and I know you're doing amazing work. So, really glad that you are doing this for people that need the help to really get change their mindset around their, especially their new diagnosis, which is what you specialize in. So it's great that you're doing that. So Olivia, I want to get a bit more personal with you, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what I'd really like to know, or if you can share with us, is there a particular experience you've been through that you really found the most challenging but led to your biggest breakthrough?
Yes, I love this question. So I think the biggest breakthrough for me, the hardest challenge was absolutely going through my marriage falling apart. And even now, sometimes I feel funny talking about it, and I don't know why. I think it's that idea of, I felt a lot of shame. I think there's a lot of shame in our culture for a number of reasons. Brene Brown comes to mind. She has a book, I Thought It Was Just Me, and that talks about how even in the mental health community and with professionals, there isn't a lot of conversation about that that belief we put on ourselves that we're not good enough or something, we're bad essentially. And I felt that way. What I learned though was that it forced me to recognize that I was putting a lot of energy into the approval, so to speak, of other people and my comparison. All of my friends and peers and at work were going through their weddings and their family building and careers. And it was scary, but I stepped away from that. I guess it was isolation at first. Maybe it was a protective measure at first, but then it started to feel like, okay, I'm in this valley, so to speak. I fell off this cliff and I'm different. That's just the situation. I have to accept it, really, is number one, acceptance. And that's a lot what I do in my program with people, is start with acceptance if they haven't overcome that yet. And that's not something that you can be convinced of, and other people might want it. I think that's what's so hard for family and friends. And I saw that with my own family and best friends. I think I know they really wanted me to get out of this kind of lull I was in, but they couldn't do it. I had to do it. And I had to start with acceptance. And from there, the rebuilding. What I learned is you can build. Like, that's the exciting part. We fear that rejection, and I think that goes back to childhood for a lot of people, or in school when you only have your peers. Like, if people at school reject you, who else are you? Or maybe back in early human history when you're in a group, if you got rejected, like, you could be, who do you go to? But embracing that, no, actually you can build your communities. You can take small steps. And so, for example, one thing I did a couple years ago completely was for fun is I went to flower school. In San Francisco, they have the Academy of Flower School, flower design. So I learned like 30 different arrangements and styles, and started a little business, actually. So things like that. And I met a best friend, and then that led to something else, and led to the coaching eventually. And so just realizing, like, you can build your life based on what you're interested in, and the right people will be there. They'll show up. The opportunities will happen. The connections will happen. Just trust that it's easy to see what you've lost in the moment when change happens, but it's not easy to see what the gains potentially will be. And there's almost always gains. That's not what people want to hear necessarily, but that's the ultimate lesson I learned. It took a while. It took a few years of going through that process to realize, well, first of all, I don't want to do this. I don't want to rebuild. It seems hard. It's hard. Like, who am I? What do I want? That's, I think, really hard, a part of the acceptance process too. But then once you get through that piece of knowing, okay, maybe I was rejected, my worst fear came true, but now how am I going to rebuild and plant seeds and watch them bloom?
Yeah, I love that. I love how you say watch them bloom, like with all your flowers, and you are blooming with everything that you're doing. And I really love that you had to accept yourself and where you were first, because so many people are not. And that's also part of gratitude, right? Being grateful for where you are so that you can accept it, because most people are not grateful for where they are and they can't accept it. So then they're in this constant cycle of negative self-talk, and they're just depressed because they're not happy where they are. But like what you said, looking back, everything that happened is like a join the dots, right? Which leads you to where you are now. And there's so much gratitude. I mean, sometimes when you're in this, actually, when you are in the situation, most of the time you're like, why me? Why is this happening to me? But if you can find some gratitude as to, well, what am I learning from this? Then it really helps you to take that next step, and that next step faster, rather than dwelling in it for, maybe some people dwell over things for years until is their last breath, and they go, oh, I should have just let that go and actually lived my life, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. No, I agree with you that you can suck time will go so quickly, reflect, like you could reflect forever. And that's something I learned with my own coaching when I had help was I also had therapy. And before about 5 years ago, I'd never had therapy before. And then I had actually I had a few therapists for a couple of years, but I was dwelling after a while. I realized, and I didn't know I had diabetes yet. So I think that was definitely something going on. But I just felt like, okay, they were listening, they were accepting, asking some good questions, but not really pushing me to action. So I love what you just said about getting there faster. How can we help people get to where they need to be to fulfill their dreams and think about their dreams, first of all, let alone achieve them and have that happen quickly. I think a lot of people, they don't see their different priorities pop up, and that's just, it's understandable. It's the way it is. With work pops up and family pops up and obligations happen, and we'll be okay living that way, but there's so much unhappiness and depression, like you said, is rampant. And why is that? I think that's such a good question that um, relates to all of these pieces and our own stories and our own challenges. Like everyone wants the best for themselves, but how do we help them get there? How do you hold space for that when there's so many other buzzing priorities?
Yeah. And I think as coaches, we really help to, put the mirror to their faces and go, what is it that is holding you back from building the life that you want, right? And sometimes those priorities that come up, did it come up because it actually organically came up, or did you make it up so that you can hide behind it so you don't take that step, right? So there's all these different things that can, happen. So, wow. Yeah. So you've had, definitely had a journey in your life. I want to ask you, you've already mentioned that you've been coached and you've seen therapists, but what were some other tools or teachers that were really helpful in your healing process?
Oh yes. Oh, I love that. Um, for a while, I thought that it was the learning. I love learning. I'm a lifelong curious learner, but after a while, you really have to put action behind that. So I think for a while, I thought I was healing by reading, and like I love the Gottman Institute. I learned about all of the research they do with relationships and gratitude included, and other tools. So I was learning about a lot of tools, but not really putting it into action. And I guess what I mean by that, or something I learned, was even having conversations. So it's a little scary starting off when you're trying to help other people, that kind of shift between, okay, I needed help, but now I know other people need help in an area that I've taken a few years to overcome. So it's that shift of how do you start that off in the conversations. I love what you're doing with your podcast, for example. Something that really helped me was hearing stories, and still is. I'm still, it depends on the audience, but I feel like it's really challenging to tell your story sometimes. I think for all of us, it can be really challenging. And so I love that you're holding this space for wisdom to come out, and hearing what other people are going through. That's definitely healing. And then healing through conversations, if it's coaching, and maybe therapy does work. I think in a lot of cases that is necessary, but I love this idea of healing through love and healing through relationships. And that might be a coaching relationship. That's definitely really important. That was important on my journey. But then my dating after marriage, like that was also a reflection of what was going on for me. And I have a great relationship now, and I'm just so grateful looking back about what happened to get to who I met, kind of in spite of all of this. And that was healing, just healing that relationship with yourself first, and then flipping it to others, and it kind of like radiates from there. Like, I love this idea of the upward spiral. I think we've all heard of the downward emotional spiral, especially if you have young kids around or friends with kids. But that idea of like, on the flip side, you can actually really like, you can have the most expansive life, just like one person's connection to another, and you get ideas, and you get this energy going, and love flowing, and just how that can spiral into just pure joy and freedom. And that's, I think, the ultimate state we all want to be in, is just feeling so joyful and excited and passionate and free. And so I love that idea of the way so I guess it was a shift in absorbing, kind of taking it all in for myself, to kind of pushing it back out, and not being afraid to be vulnerable and share, and be someone who I respect when I hear their story.
Yeah, I love that. And I was also the same as you, like reading and learning all these things, but when you don't take action, it just doesn't work. You can read everything under the sun, but you need to actually apply it in your life for it to work. So I love that. And it's just a great reminder for everyone that, you know, even though you're reading a lot, it doesn't mean you know everything unless you actually take the action that you're learning. Even if it's one thing from a big book that you read, that's one thing, extra thing that's helping you take that step forward to improve your life, right? And stories, yes, thank you for thank you. It really is. The podcast, for me, like, not just for the audience that's listening to this, is healing for me. And I just love listening to all the stories from all my guests, and learning from you guys as well, because everyone has something that you can learn from, right? And I just absolutely love it. And connecting with people, again, like you said, that community is that connection, that human connection that we need, is such a big thing to help with the healing process. So yes, thank you. Great advice and great wisdom. Thank you. So I know you mentioned a couple of books already during our conversation so far, but are there any other books that really changed your life?
Well, I'm gonna insert kind of a fun book here now that we're talking. It's on your kind of spiritual theme. It's Animal Spirit Cards. Have you ever done this? The daily ritual. I was just doing this earlier, but so it's I draw a card. I try to do it every day, and then the book is all about how we each have these different parts of what animals have used, like, instinctively to survive. And so that's kind of one daily example, but things just, I love that idea of how can we harness or tap into energy. Like, we all have these different lines of energy running through. Some are dormant. Like, for example, one I love is the crocodile, which is, it talks about the need for resting and waiting and gathering energy, and now's not the time for big decisions. And so that's a book I read daily.
That's awesome. I love it.
But no, I'm also reading. Stephen King has a book on writing. It's called On Writing. It's one of his earlier books. He's known for his kind of sci-fi novels, but he wrote an early book about writing, and that's something I'm really interested in, is improving along the lines of storytelling and getting your message, not just your message, but your being comfortable sharing your real self. That's been a challenge for me, and maybe also being in the corporate world for a long time, we're not always sharing super personally. So yeah, I'm really interested in writing, so I've been reading that book too.
Yeah, I love it. And you know, as you say, when you're in the corporate world, you don't overshare, because then people think you're weird, right? And but sharing your experience with people really, as we were saying before, really helps other people to heal and to learn. So I love that you're taking action, reading about it, so that you can do that for other people, to help them learn and help them heal as well.
Yes, yes, absolutely. No, taking action, and something else I learned about that recently is not to nerd out on you, but the some of the science of the brain. So neuroplasticity is this theory that our brain can grow, and that actually these neurons don't connect. Like
Yeah.
you won't connect without taking that, like testing. It's like an experiment. You learn, you test, you see
Yeah.
what happens, and then that's how the neurons
Yeah.
connect to new
Yeah.
pathways.
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of like that aha moment where it's like that, oh, all right, those two things actually connect. All right, why didn't I think about that earlier, right? So it's
Oh, the stove is hot. Oh, it is. And then you touch the
yeah,
stove and you're like, oh, yep, it's hot. And then it like
yeah,
connected.
yeah. And I mean, babies, they're building neurons connection every single day because they're learning so much. But I think as adults, we tend to be set in our way after so many years. So we don't go out to learn new things and apply them because we already know everything, right?
It's so true. Yes, we can grow. We can grow our brains. There's an infinite amount of space in our there. It's an endless landscape, but you're right. We have these super well-worn railroad tracks in our brain that it takes a lot of effort. And that's something I do with coaching too. And I think that's a great piece of that taking action component is learning, being intentional, acceptance part one, accepting being accountable, taking responsibility, and then actually implementing these little experiments. And but what is necessary too is knowing your end. What do you want? What's that goal? What do you desire? And then once you can picture that, feel that, smell that, bring in all the sensories, then it's almost like you've created that gap in your brain, and it's unresolved. There's tension. It wants to get there. You don't know how it's going to happen, but that's when the opportunities pop up around you, and your brain really wants to close that reality with the dream you're feeling, and the new dream, what you want to rebuild in your brain as really like a new belief. I think that's also something when people have distorted beliefs and we're set in our ways. Unfortunately, a lot of that can be distorted because it could come from childhood if we don't have that perspective, and all these really kind of set in stone pathways. Yes, it takes intention.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah. Well, talking about limiting beliefs, there's been a lot of changes this year. Obviously, we touched on that, and there's a lot of people starting their awakening process, or in the middle of their process of change. So, what are some recommendations or advice that you have for people to get rid of any limiting beliefs or fear that's holding them back from taking action, so that they can move to create that life that they've always dreamed of?
Oh, yes, yes. Good question. Um, Number one is really this mindset kind of slash learning about the brain. And that's something I've learned about with diabetes coaching. They call it psychoeducation, but there's a lot of research with the health, kind of in health and wellness coaching, where you get more results once people learn about the process of their own body and can set goals around. So partnering on the education piece to really help people take action. So I think that's definitely a part of it, is really learning yourself. So learning in general, for example, about the brain is great, but then how can you use that to your advantage? So I think it's that shift into how can I learn about, expand my subconscious, I guess, is a way that I think about it. The more you learn about your inner working for yourself. So I would say building that foundation, that daily practice. And I recently started to do more affirmations, kind of along the lines of the gratitude. I didn't really realize how that changes your brain. That's also programming. Your brain doesn't know the difference between what you're telling it and like what's actually happened. Like you can improve just by visualizing. And so yes, definitely step one is building this foundation, building this base. Number two is don't be afraid to think about the opportunity. I think this is hard. I think sometimes that's easier said than done. And I never like when people say like, oh, at least at least you still have your family, or at least, when something that's kind of life changing happens. Like right now, there's so much uncertainty. I think that was always the one thing I didn't want to hear was, okay, well, at least you have your job, at least you have this. So I'm careful. I like to be careful about saying that. But what is the opportunity? How can you, and even if it's unrealistic, I think that's another thing is we're kind of stuck in what the reality is. I think we set our goals based on our situation. And so part of this exercise of thinking about opportunities, it could be something really unrealistic, really crazy, like list everything that you could do now that you wouldn't have been able to do. So I think kind of taking that fantasy almost approach, that dreaming approach, which I love about coaching too, because who puts aside time to really dream up what you want to do in life and what that looks like. So that's one thing. And then I guess the third thing is think of opportunities that you can invest in yourself and what that looks like for you. If that's your health, if that's taking more time for building your network, if a career change is something you want, kind of how can you invest and build your community and build your confidence and your skill set.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's not one path. But I guess one thing I'll leave with is that I also tell people that change can happen really quickly. So it can feel hard in the moment, but it can happen really quickly. You would be surprised with some of these tools, these putting it into action and rebuilding that brain. You can be in a really different place in 6 months. And so I think that hope is important to instill and partly with hearing other stories and how others have overcome it. But yes, how quickly it can happen. And usually when change doesn't happen for a while, it's because of that, some limiting belief or roadblock. So just that assurance that no, for a lot of people, change doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and then all of a sudden a light can go off. So just that belief and that hope.
Yeah, I love that. All the advice that you've given, it's great. I just love it. And it is having that faith, right, that what you're doing is going to take you to where you want to be. And sometimes you might have to course correct, but really holding that vision of where you want to be and dreaming big is such a big thing where I think we get taught to not dream big, right? Who are you to think that you can do that? Well, why can't I do that? Right? If someone else has done it, why can't I do it? And as you were saying before, earlier in our conversation about change, people are okay with change, but they just don't do it because they don't have the guarantee, right, of what the outcome is. But it's really not being attached to that outcome, but just having that vision to where you want to be, so that, yeah, there is no guarantee. I don't like even starting this podcast. I mean, I'd love to have 1 million subscribers, right? But I don't know, maybe no one wants to listen to my podcast, but it's because I really believe in sharing stories. So that's why I'm doing it. It's that why you're doing it, and then taking action to just keep going, right?
I love it. No, I love the action you have taken. It's really inspiring, this conversation we're having and all the other conversations you've had. I love watching all the really motivating women who you've been able to connect with, so many others. And yeah, I think touching on that too, that's definitely I think a presence for all of us, no matter in our lives. There is that social media or that follower or that who's looking at me or how do I compare. I think overcoming that just with going back to the why. I love that about what your perspective is what are you passionate about? Because why not do it anyways? I mean, that was something, kind of the revelation with my diabetes coaching, is I need to do this anyway. And for you, you need to share, or you love to connect, or kind of whatever is a passion. Like how do you, and why not just start there? Because you'll also learn what people need and what people are like, what's resonating with them.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Cool. Thank you. So, Olivia, I want to ask you, what do you believe is the greatest lesson you've learned in your life so far?
Ooh, good question. I think back to the interconnectedness. It's just that I've learned that I thought I knew myself really well. I thought that I could overcome things. I thought I was really strong, and I mean, I was, but I think realizing just how many layers there are to ourselves, and realizing that there is a truth deep inside. Some people can more easily access this, but for some reason, and it might have been back to the corporate world thing, not wanting to, I think maybe even like teachers, maybe it's an authority figure thing. I kind of always went down that path of accomplishments, achievements. I think like a lot of us, especially in this day and age, there's kind of this direction we're expected to go in our school and careers. And so unraveling your inner truth, I'd say the most important is to come back to that. What is your truth? How can you get to that? Really, how do you learn about your inner world and really get there? And I think once you get there, or for me, it was easy, because it became more clear what to let go of, what to say yes to, what to say no to. And until I got there, decisions were hard. It was hard to make some decisions. And I love questions like that too. Like, why are some decisions so difficult for people? And I have had some experience with that coaching too, where someone just can't decide. There's path A, path B. Like, what do I do? I want both. And we also have so many options these days of where life can go. So I think that's an interesting question. And I think it comes back to really taking that time to know yourself and learn your inner world. But then back to action.
Yeah, I love that. Definitely learning about yourself is where it all starts, right? What your soul, what you're screaming out to want to do, and answering that call, right?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
hard. It seems easier said than done, definitely.
Definitely, because sometimes what your soul, what your inner self is trying to call out to you, you're like, that sounds crazy. I don't want to do that, right? But but then if you don't answer it, everything that you're doing outside just doesn't feel right. And it starts getting more misaligned, and until you have that breakdown, and then you go and listen to yourself. And that's what happens to a lot of people, right?
Absolutely. No, I think we're used to feeling like slight anxiety at all times. So I think for me, I didn't realize until I started to feel really calm and like, okay, I'm happy, but it seems normal to feel stressed half the time and no sleep and like weird weight patterns. Like, I guess you get used to that normal kind of baseline anxiety when you have so much going on.
Yeah. Well, flowing from that question, I'd like to ask you, if you could time travel to and go back to a younger version of yourself, what advice would you give yourself?
Ooh, I would tell myself to try getting rejected, to try being comfortable going against the grain. I think I was really scared to go, and I don't know why. I still kind of think about that sometimes. I had a really close family, really kind of loyal, I don't know if it protected me, but I always was thinking about my friends and other people and relationships. And so I think what I would tell myself is loyalty is important, absolutely, and relationships are important. But be more experimental and test out saying no to something, saying no to someone's request, and not being scared to go out on something on your own and find more similarities if if it's not happening for you with your friends or your relationships. Yeah, I think just that. Yeah, no, that was so hard. That acceptance and wanting to fit in and wanting to get the promotion and
Yeah.
wanting to get the best resume. Yeah, I would say to myself, don't let that limit you, and get rejected. Try it, test it out.
Yeah. And I love that. I really love that advice because, well, are you going to die if you get rejected? No. And that's something that I ask myself, am I going to die if I do that? No. Okay, I can do it. Right. and, and I think it's just it's a conditioning that we have, right? To not want to be rejected, to be part of the herd. We're a herd animal, I guess, being wanting
Mm-hmm.
to not be that black sheep in amongst all the white
Mm-hmm.
sheep, right? So it's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that is just really beautiful advice, to just, say no to someone because it feels right to you. It may not feel right to them or everyone else, but it feels good to you. So say no and get rejected or whatever. I love that. Thank you. So maybe I'm going to take a bit of a turn because for me, on my journey, the biggest thing was about self-love. So I want to ask you, as a busy, I know a busy coach, a busy entrepreneur, what are your top 3 go-to activities to make sure you really give yourself that self-love?
Well, I love my running. I go running every day. I think doing some kind of movement is really important. Just in the neighborhood I've been going, I've always just been kind of a local running path kind of person. Never really got to a gym type of routine, but so I love that. I put on my music. I love music, so any way I can incorporate that, kind of getting myself in that relaxation zone where I know I'm helping myself. And then something else I've been doing is writing. I've had a writing goal, actually. I'm doing this with someone else who, along with working out, actually, we're accountable. I have a buddy where we're accountable for writing every day for an hour and working out for at least 45 minutes. So I think I used to journal throughout growing up, like middle school, high school, and I think really putting that pen to paper, no matter what it is, if it's journaling or a blog or something creative. So I'll do that, and I would love to write a book. I just saw someone from a business class that just came out and published a book, and that was just so inspiring. Like, in this day and age, that is obtainable, and so that lights me up too, definitely, that creative side of expression. And then I back to learning again. I love to take classes. I'm actually doing my own diabetes coaching right now, which is, so I'm coaching others, but I also thought, I want to keep connecting myself with women. So I'm in a group of women who have type 1 diabetes, and that's part of me. What I need too is that connection, and so that's also something, my own investment, I guess, is what that is yeah, just really doing something that will feed your soul a little bit. So yeah, those 3.
Yeah, I love that. Movement is definitely very important, and you're talking about investing in yourself, and that is a form of self-love. I think most of us don't love ourselves enough to invest in ourselves. We feel like, oh, that's way too much to, like, why would I invest something money to improve myself? Well, you're worth it. you're worth you're worth improving. You're worth learning more to take that step to create that life that you want, but you can't right now because you won't invest in yourself. So yeah, that is a form of self-love as well, and learning is great, and coaches need coaches. That is, no matter where you are, even if you're way up at this whatever level you are, you still need a coach so that you can keep improving and getting to that next level for yourself as well. So that's awesome. So I've
Definitely.
loved our conversation, Olivia. You're just such a beautiful soul, and I love what you're doing. Before we wrap up, can you share with us what right now is setting your soul on fire?
Right now, I am just feeling so free and happy connecting with people, and just I've really taken this turn mentally over the last year about embracing my own choices. So what's lighting me up is making my own choices and being decisive about what I want and saying what I want and taking action and not being afraid of rejection and really embrace it. It's almost like I dare you to reject me. Do you really want to reject me? Whether it's my work or
Love it.
a romantic situation, but no, it's really lighting me up to embrace the choice and the advocacy I have for myself.
Awesome. I love that. So thank you so much for sharing your love and wisdom with us today. If people want to find out more about you and how they can work with you, where should they go?
Oh, yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been so great. Instagram, olive.blooms, and my website is oliveblooms.com. And then I also have a Facebook group for type 1 diabetes, and the name, if you search type 1 live free. So you can find me Facebook, Instagram, or my website is oliveblooms.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'll have all your details and any recommended resources from our conversation available in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Kaki. So great.
Yeah. And until next time, I love you, I believe in you, and you are worth taking that first step to the life of your dreams.